So hello and welcome you all to this course about muscle mastery. We will be talking about the anatomy and the function of our muscles, and I will give you a comprehensive guide how muscles work and how they are built. So in this course we will unlock the secrets of our muscles. We will be diving deep into the basics and the anatomy and the function of our muscles. And as I said, I will give you a short, comprehensive guide and provide you with all the information you need to know everything about the basics of our muscle. So at first I will give you a general introduction about muscles, and then I will tell you the agenda, what we will be talking about in our course. So you're very welcome. Thank you for clicking this video, and enjoy. And just give me feedback if you want, and also if it's critical or you like it, just let me know. Would be a pleasure to me to know what you're thinking about. So let's start. Muscles in general are an integral part of the human's body structure and function. As you can see in this picture, in every part of our body, almost every part, we have muscles, like in the hands, in the arms, also in our face and in the entire body. So for every movement we will be doing, muscles play a crucial role, and they're also responsible for the posture and the overall physical performance of our body. So understanding muscles is essential if you're an athlete or a fitness enthusiast or a healthcare professional, or if you're just someone who is interested in the human anatomy. You're very welcome to do this course, because it's very interesting in my opinion, and yeah, you can learn everything about muscles. And as an athlete, you can learn how to train them. As a healthcare professional, you can dive deep into the function. And if you are just interested, you can see just the basics, how muscles work, and get a general overview. So muscles in general consist of various types. So we don't have just the type muscle. We have smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and skeletal muscle we will be talking about. And each of these muscles have its own unique characteristics and functions, and they are built differently to perform the tasks they are given. So what you're seeing here are skeletal muscles, and we will be talking about smooth muscles in your organs, and we will be talking about cardiac muscles in your heart. So stay tuned, and I will give you just the short agenda we will be talking about. It consists of 7 points. At first, I will give you a short introduction, and then we will dive into the anatomy of skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. We will be talking about the basics of muscle contraction, so that you're provided with the information how muscle contraction works, also how they are performing a contraction. We will be talking about sliding filament theory, maybe a new word for some of you. It's just the contraction when we will be talking about myosin and actin. And then we will be looking about the performance of the muscle, like the length of the sarcomere, and how the length of the sarcomere will affect the performance. And we will be talking about the different muscle types of skeletal muscles. So we have skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. And then when we will be diving into the anatomy of skeletal muscles, I will provide you with the information of different types of skeletal muscles. As example, different types of muscles for sprinters or people doing endurance sports. At the end, I will give you a short summary, providing you with every information you have learned in this course. And at the end, you will be able to do a little quiz and apply your knowledge. So if you're interested, just stay in the lane and yeah, have fun. Thank you very much. So, as I said in the agenda, the first point will be an introduction to muscle types in general. So we will talk about the different muscle types which are found in your body. So we have three different types, as I said. We have the smooth muscle, the cardiac muscle, and the skeletal muscle. We will be starting with the skeletal muscle, and this one is found attached to the bones and is responsible for body movement in general. So here we have the skeletal muscle, and you can also see a little bit of the anatomy, which I will be talking about a little bit more precise in the future. We have a smooth muscle, which is found in the walls of organs, blood vessels, and a digestive system. So we have a smooth muscle here, and you can also see a little bit of the anatomy under, and also these are the pictures under the microscope. So at last we have the cardiac muscle, which is found exclusively in the heart. This is the anatomy. This is the anatomy under the microscope. So as you can see here, we have lines. As you can see here, we have connected parts, and here we have lines which are connected. So the very interesting about this is that the skeletal muscle is the only one which is under your control. So as example, when you are gripping, you can tell your body, I want to grip, okay? So, but if you're talking about the cardiac muscle, you can say to your heart, beat faster. So you can't control the motions of the cardiac muscle. It's controlled by your body and not by yourself. And this is also the smooth muscle, which is responsible, for example, in your eyes, if your pupil will be wider or smaller, so it's affected by light. You can't tell your pupil, just be wider, please. You don't have control about this. So the skeletal muscle is the only muscle you can really control by yourself, and the other two is not under control. So if you want, you can add this to the slides. I have uploaded the slides in the course. So this is the one I want to tell you about, these three. Now we will dive deep into the really details about these three types of muscle. So the next point of our agenda is to talk about the skeletal muscle, the basics and the anatomy. So the skeletal muscle can be consciously controlled by our somatic nervous system. So this one is the only one which is controlled by the somatic nervous system. The muscle itself is striated when it is observed under the microscope, as you can see here in this picture, although the striations do not indicate the cell boundaries. So the muscle cell itself is long and consists of non-branched cells which are aligned in parallel, as you can see here. They are aligned in parallel when you look at them under the microscope. So we will have multiple peripheral cell nuclei per cell. This is very important, which you can note. And the muscle itself is up to 30-70 centimeters long. So one muscle, which is pretty long, as example in the leg, and 40 to 100 micrometers wide. You also have to take into considerations that we have no information transfer via cell contacts. So every cell contact is they are all working together, but they don't have the information about the other cell, what the cell is doing. So when you look at the cardiac muscle, there it is different. In this cardiac muscle, every cell contact knows what the other one is doing. So this is a big difference between these two. So we have no excitation from we have a direct excitation from the anterior horn cell of the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is in your back, and the muscles will be activated by the anterior horn cell. So now we will be diving into the anatomy of the skeletal muscle. We will go from big to small. So we will start at the muscle and we will end at this little picture here. So at first we have the big muscle. As you can see here, we are starting at the muscle. This is our big muscle. When we look into how the muscle is built, at first we will see muscle bundles, because a muscle consists of many different muscle bundles. When we take a look how a muscle bundle is built, we can see it consists of different fascicles. And if we look at the fascicles, how they are built, they consist of different muscle fibers in this cell. And the muscle fibers are consisting of different myofibrils. And the myofibril consists of different sarcomeres. And now we're in the tiniest pictures. So if someone asks you, okay, how is a muscle built? You can say, okay, we have a big muscle, and then you go this way onto this picture, and then we have an image of the very tiny part of the muscle. So this one, as you can see here, is this one, and then we can see how a contraction of a muscle works. So here in this part, there will be the contraction. Like if you tell your body, okay, to muscle, as example for gripping in your arm, you say, okay, I want to contract. These will move into the middle. So I will tell you how this works. I will be talking about this more precisely in the next slides, but to give you a little idea how contraction works, we will see that these two here, the blue and the red one, will connect, and then we will be in the middle. So the H zone will be smaller, and every one of these little cells will contract for itself. And because this one is contracting, and this one is contracting, and this one is contracting, the entire muscle will contract. So every little cell is responsible for the entire contraction. So I will be talking about this more precisely in the filament theory, but for now you have a little idea of how contraction works, and you will see why the anatomy and the knowledge about anatomy is very important about to know how a contraction works. So in the next minutes we want to talk about the smooth muscle basics. You will find the smooth muscle in every hollow organ, and it's important to know that the smooth muscle are not under conscious control, so you can't tell the muscle to work. It works and is influenced by hormones, and its form is like it's small and shaped, it's spindle cell shaped. It has a width of 10 micrometers and a length of 100 micrometers, and it has one nucleus per cell. As I said, you can't control it. It is regulated by the autonomic nervous system. This is a big difference in combination to the skeletal muscle. So let's talk about the anatomy of the smooth muscle. Smooth muscle are found in the walls of all hollow organs. Not in the heart, but every other hollow organ. As example, the gastrointestinal tract. And in the skin, where the smooth muscle are responsible for hair erection in response to cold or excitement. And the sebaceous gland secretion. You will also find the smooth muscle in the eye, where the smooth muscle is involved in the process of the regulation of the pupil size. Like when you get more light in your pupil will get smaller, and if the pupil will need more light to see more, the pupil size will be wider. So also the smooth muscle form intrinsic networks due to the presence of specialized intercellular connections called gap junctions. So these muscle cells are connected, and the gap junctions facilitate direct electrical communication, where ions and electrical signals can pass between cells, coordinating their contractions. This is so important that they can coordinate the contraction and work as an entire unit and as a synchronized unit. And these principles of coordinating and synchronization is vital for the smooth functioning of various physiological processes such as digestion and blood flow regulation. So they are also responsible for these principles of working on the body. So for now, we want to talk about the cardiac muscle basics. Please, every time you hear cardiac, you will think about the heart. Oh, this isn't written properly. Please think about your heart. So you will find the cardiac muscle cells only and exclusively in the heart. There is no other organ or part of the body where you will find exactly these cells, and like the smooth muscle, they are not under conscious control. So as I said in the previous chapter, you won't be able to control the contraction of the cells in your heart, because the cells and the contraction of the cells are regulated by the autonomic nervous system. They are also striated, and they have branched cells and one nucleus per cell. And as I said, you will only find these in the heart. When we talk about size, you will see that the cardiac muscle cells are 10 to 30 micrometers in width and 50 to 100 micrometers in length. And now let's talk about the anatomy of the muscle cell. They have intercalated discs, and this is important that they provide close connection and communication between these cells, because the cells generate their own electrical impulses and they have an efficient transmission of these electrical signals. And these electrical impulses that initiate and regulate the heartbeat. And the heartbeat is the most important thing in your body, because if you have no heartbeat, you are dead. So it's very important that these generated electrical impulses work, and that they have an efficient transmission, and that they are generated within the specialized cells of the heart, and they're called sinoarterial, in short form SA node, and the atrioventricular AV node. It's also very important that these cells have a high demand for oxygen and energy, and a very rich supply of blood vessels. So now you know all the basics about the 3 different muscle groups. You know about smooth muscle, the cardiac muscle, and the skeletal muscle. And as part of the chapter Skeletal Muscle, I talked a little bit about muscle contraction. I've only touched on this, and in the next chapters we will go more into detail about talking this. So you know, this picture, I've told you we have very important parts of the muscle. And the most you will think about will be myosin and actin. These are very important, and about that edge zone. And this is the relaxed part, and this is the contracted part. You see the edge zone is getting smaller. And in the next part, I want to tell you how a contraction really works and what you need for a contraction. So the basics of muscle contraction is you need 3 things to perform a contraction. Of course, you will need energy and you will need calcium. Many people don't think about calcium, but it's so important to have calcium to perform contraction. And in most things you will need oxygen. We will see there can be contraction without using oxygen, not for a long time, but it's possible. But for talking about it in general, you will need these 3 things. So at first, the energy. You know, every teacher will tell you mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, and that's true because mitochondria serves adenosine triphosphate. You know this, like from school. This is our molecule to generate energy, and you have resources of these ATP in your muscle. For now, we will talk about muscle wet weight. Wet weight means 1 kilogram of muscle has muscle and also the water inside of the muscle. So muscle wet weight is muscle and water 1 kilogram. So as I said, you will have resources 5 to 7 millimole per kilogram muscle wet weight ATP, and you will have 15 to 20 millimole per kilogram wet weight phosphocreatine. We will talk about why you need phosphocreatine. It's also part of the energy generation. For the second, you will need oxygen. You know, myoglobin serves oxygen for the ATP synthesis. ATP synthesis means you will have ATP in your body, like we talked about this here, but you also need to generate more ATP. And for that, you will need oxygen. And you have 6 grams of myoglobin per kilogram wet weight muscle. And for the third thing, you will need calcium. And the endoplasmatic reticulum serves this calcium to perform a contraction. For the next, we will talk about the sliding filament theory, and this part, you see this and this. I will circle it, and I will tell you that these parts are exactly these one here, and I will tell you how this contraction works. So in the last chapter, we talked about the basics you need to understand the muscle contraction. And now I will tell you how the contraction on a molecular basic will work. So this will be a little bit more complicated, or it's not like complicated, it's much stuff compromised on one slide. So keep attention, and if you have any questions after this, please don't hesitate to contact me. So the first we have like 4 parts, and this is a circle. So at first we will start here at this face. we will have the cross bridges formed between myosin and actin. And the muscle contraction initiates with the release of calcium ions from the sarcoplasmic reticulum in response to an action potential. So you don't see it here, but you have an action potential which causes calcium. We talked about this in the last slide. So we have Ca2+, who is released, and this calcium ions will be here, and they will bind to troponin, and they will cause tropomyosin to shift and expose the binding site to the actin filaments. So if there would be no calcium into this part, the myosin head won't be able to connect here. So we need calcium to get free binding. So now, as calcium is released to the cell, the ATP is used, and we will have a connection between myosin and actin. So for the second part, so we will go from there to there, we have a cross bridge formation and the calcium role. So the exposed action binding site allows the myosin head to attach and form the cross bridges. So the calcium presence facilitates this interaction by altering the troponin-tropomyosin complex and is allowing the myosin to access to the binding sites. This happens here. And in the second phase, we have the normal contraction. It's like the power stroke of myosin, which we will have here. So now comes the real contraction. At first we needed calcium to get the binding site, to get myosin to connect to actin. So energized by the hydrolysis of ATP into ADP and PI, which you see here, we have ATP, which serves the energy for this contraction. You see the myosin head shifts into this direction. And after this, ADP and PI is released. So now the myosin heads pull the actin filament towards the center of the sarcomere, as you see there. And this power stroke generates force and shortens the sarcomere. Like you had the sarcomere here, and now it gets shortened. And here you will have the H zone, as you saw in the picture before. So at the next part, we will have a release of ADP and PI and the ATP role. So after the power stroke, ADP and PI are released from the myosin head, which you saw here. And this release results in a Rigor-like state, and the myosin head remains attached to the actin. This is so important, and I think that's so amazing that many people are thinking if there is a contraction and ADP and PI is released, that the myosin head will release from the binding site. But you will need a new ATP, a new energy model, we'll see here, to release the myosin of the actin. So you will need one ATP to perform the contraction, and you will need another ATP to release the actin of the myosin of the actin. So you will have this, as told it here, your rigor mortis. It's like when people die, they will the muscles of the people will stay in a like rigor state, because if you're dead, you don't generate ATP. And if one contraction is performed, the body has no ATP to release the connection. So the people will stay in a very rigorous state after they die, because after the contraction, you don't have energy to release the contraction. And this is the thing why you have rigor mortis. So if you're interested in this state, please Google it, how this one works. And after a while, yeah, the contraction will release, because the molecules like myosin and actin, they will degenerate if you die. So then there will be no contraction. But for first time after you die, you will have in your body a real muscle contraction, which will not release at first. So only the binding of a fresh ATP molecule to the myosin head is essential for cross-bridge detachment, which you see here. So, and for the next one, you will have the ATP binding and the cross-bridge detachment and the calcium removal. So the ATP binding causes the myosin head to detach from the actin, which you see, what you see here. So you have ATP, and now the myosin head will release the connection. And ATPase activity on the myosin head hydrolyzes ATP into ADP and PI and is releasing the energy. So this energy is used to reset the myosin head's position, preparing it for another power stroke. And additionally, the calcium removal is initiated as the action potential ends, leading the repositioning, sorry, have problems with that, of tropomyosin, which covers the binding sites on actin, and this process begins muscle relaxation. So at the last part, myosin uses ATP to return to its erected state. So you will have another one. And then this will begin. So in summary, the actin-myosin sliding filament theory, which you saw here, involves a coordinated interplay between calcium and ATP, as you see, calcium and different ATPs. Calcium's role in exposing actin binding sites initiates the contraction process, while ATP's hydrolysis fuels cross-bridge formation, the power stroke, and the cross-bridge detachment. The removal of calcium, as you see here, and the repositioning, I don't know why I have problems pronouncing this word, of tropomyosin contributes to muscle relaxation at the end of the contraction. So, okay, after the sliding filament theory was a really brick, so I hope you got it, how the contraction really works. And I know it's a little bit complicated. And please, if you have questions, contact me. Don't hesitate. Post a comment. I will try to solve every problem you have. So for the next, we want to talk about a little bit more practical thing, and it's like the sarcomere length and the performance. The peak performance depends on the length of the sarcomere. So if you watch at this picture, you will see you have the H zone, and but if the muscle is stretched, yeah, the H zone can be wider, like the H zone could be here, or the H zone could be smaller, like this. And now we want to talk about how this influences the power you can use. So please, for this one, take your arm like this, like it's called here. Take your arm like this and perform a contraction of your fist. So build a fist and feel the power your fist can produce. And now you do the same, but have your arm like this up here. Like pull your arm to up here, not the entire arms, only the hand up, and perform a contraction. And now put it down here. So this should be a fist. I'm sorry for my panning skills. And perform a contraction there. There are 3 different positions where you perform a contraction. And you will see at this position, you will have power in your contraction. And in these 2, you will have less power. So if you're performing contraction with a vertical angle in your arm, you will have a really good power in your contraction. But if you have this is your arm and this is your hand, you will have less power. Yeah, if you're really doing this, you will feel it. You won't have the same power in all 3 stages. And this is important, and I want to tell you why. Because the sarcomere length has a peak performance which depends on the length of the sarcomere, and the optimum where you have 100% force is 2 to 2.2 micrometers, which you can see here in this graphic. At the x-axis you will have the sarcomere length, and then the y-axis you will have the maximum force. And if you have, there's the optimum. It's 2 to 2.2, and if the muscle is stretched in the one or in the other direction, you will have like no power. If you're really doing the fist like this, if it's possible, you will see you won't be able to do a real fist. There is no power when you like if you do it here. So this is important. That's one thing. I think it's very interesting that the part of stretching and the beginning state of the muscle is very important for the peak performance your muscle can do. So like if you're doing sports, and many people are saying, yo, you need the perfect theory of doing this, not just doing it with much power, and how to generate the maximum of the power. You will see every muscle has an optimum where he will produce the maximum force. And this is because if you look at this picture again, when every myosin head is connected to the actin, you will have the maximum power. And if your H zone is bigger, like it is like here, it could be here, and there will be the actin, you will have these myosin heads which cannot connect to the actin because the actin will start here, so they can't produce power. And I think that's very interesting. So for the last part of this course, you came very far. We want to talk about different muscle types of skeletal muscle. At first we talked about the skeletal muscle, and now I have to tell you that the skeletal muscle has different types. So you have the different types of muscle: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. And then you have 3 types of skeletal muscle. And basically you have 3 types of muscle. You have 3 different types. So the first one is type 1, is slow twitch, in short form ST. And this muscle is for endurance. This one can work for hours and hours and hours. Which you can see here. Like long distance running. The type 2A is for fast oxidative glycolytic twitch, FOGT in short, and he's responsible for moderate force and endurance. You will see this one here. It's like middle distance running. It's like 3K kilometers. Yeah, where you will put in force and power, but it's not like a 100-meter sprint. You will walk like with 80% of your maximum power. And then you will have type 2B, which is a real fast twitch, in short FT muscle, which you will see here. This is third. The third muscle is responsible for short bursts of highly intensive activities and force generation. The muscle has no endurance and is almost not resistant to fatigue. So, like Usain Bolt, when he's sprinting 100 meters, he is using his type 2B muscles. And we will see pictures of athletes how these different muscles, these different muscles will look like. And every muscle type is specialist for various activities. As I said here, the first one is responsible for long distance running, the second for like 3K running, and the third for sprinting. And every type has to be trained different. You will see a sprinter is training different than a long distance runner, and he is capable of performing different activities. So at this picture, we will look at the end for like a summary. And now we will talk about type 1 muscular fibers. So we said one is long distance running, and it's a perfect example. We have Richard Ringer here, a marathon runner. And if you're running for like over 50 kilometers, the muscle will perform really different things like if you're sprinting 100 meters. So the type 1 muscle fibers are known as slow twitch or oxidative fibers. They need oxygen. And they are adapted for endurance activities and prolonged contractions, like slow but static contraction. They contain a high concentration of mitochondria, capillary, and myoglobin, which provide a steady supply of oxygen and energy. You will see it here. These red things, which you won't have these much here, they are, that's the myoglobin. You will see we will turn, like, if you look at it, like red. And they gain and regenerate ATP primarily through oxidative metabolism. So you have oxygen in these contractions, and they contract relatively slow. Because of this, they are called slow twitch, ST, but they are highly resistant to fatigue. Like you can run 40 kilometers or more, or people running like ultra running, like 100 kilometers, they will do the job, the muscles. And they are well suited for activities like, as I said, long distance running or long distance cycling. For the second, you will see what I wanted to tell you. We'll see the muscles are shaped. They don't have big legs and really intense, and they have a crazy volume. They are just small, and as you see here, for the marathon runner, this is like slow twitch muscles will look like. They are small. Type 1 muscle fibers like ST, slow twitch, and I told you that how these muscles look. They are pretty small, and like for what they are, like marathon running. And now we want to talk about type 2A muscle fibers like FOGT. People having these are like swimmers. Like, I don't know which discipline exactly this guy is swimming, but if you think about swimming 1 kilometers butterfly, you know you will need energy to perform these activity, but you need a little bit of endurance that you don't drown after 100 meters. So for that, you will need type 2A muscle fibers. They sometimes referred to as fast twitch oxidative fibers. Some people are saying yes, you have type 1 and you have type B, type 2. But if you want to be more precise, you will have to tell that you have type 1 muscles and type 2A and type 2B. So type 2A possess characteristics of both type A and type 2B fibers, like they are relatively good in performance endurance, but they are also relatively good in generating force. So they're adapted for activities that require moderate force and endurance. So it's like both endurance and force. 5K running, 1 kilometer butterfly swimming, or if you think about other sports who need both. They contain a moderate number of mitochondria for the energy and myoglobin for the oxygen, and enabling both oxidative and glycolytic energy pathways. So they generate ATP through a combination of oxidative and glycolytic metabolism. And they contract more quickly than type 1 fibers and are relatively resistant to fatigue. And they are suited for activities like middle distance running or swimming, like I told you in this picture. So you will also have type 2B muscle fibers who are really produce the power. So if you look at this picture, these are power muscles. So if you know him, that's Robert Firsterman. He's really known for his muscles. He's called Quadzilla, and because of his immense quads, and he's a sprinter, like a sprinter for cycling, and he will really need power for short distance. So these muscles are adapted for short bursts of intense activity and high force generation, and they contain fewer mitochondria and myoglobin compared to type 1 and type 2A fibers, and they generate ATP primarily through glycolytic metabolism, which doesn't require oxygen. So in the previous chapters I told you will need, for most contraction, you will need oxygen to perform contraction. But if you really want to generate force, using the way of generating force using oxygen, it's too slow and not powerful. So the body is capable of performing generating force without using oxygen, but not for a long time, only for short bursts of really intensive powers. So they contract rapidly, not fast, rapidly, really fast, and generate high force, but fatigue relatively quickly. So he will be able to produce 2000 watts, but not for 1 hour or 10 minutes or 1 minute. It's like for 10 seconds. So they will be, I don't know, exactly 10 or 15, but not a minute. But they are capable of producing high powers, high intensity, rapidly contracting, but not for a really short period of time. And they are suited for activities that demand explosive power, such as sprinting in Usain Bolt. If you look at sprinters and these muscles, they have big muscles, or like weightlifting athletes who will need for a really short period of time many or really big powers. For these activities you will have these muscles. So as I said, you will have type 1, type 2A and type 2B. It's like endurance, power, the middle of both. You will have the red ones for oxygen and myoglobin, which you don't have here, and here you have like 50-50. And it's also, if you look at these these graphics where you have on the y-axis the power, on the x-axis the time. Over time you will have much power, but if you go for time there won't be power. Here you will have in the middle, you will have like for 5 minutes power, and then no power, and here you will have power the entire way. And these are the three types, the three different types you will have to know when you talk about skeletal muscle. And these three types have different training. So that's the last part. Now let's do a quick summary, and then you will have to apply your knowledge. So for now, we want to do a quick summary that you can apply every knowledge you learned. In the last chapter, we talked about the three different types of muscles, of skeletal muscle. And now we want to do a quick summary. It's only this slide for the entire course. What you've learned and what you can apply. You learned that the body has three different muscle types. You have smooth muscle in the hollow organs. You have cardiac muscle in the heart, and you have skeletal muscle, which is attached to the bones and is responsible for the movement. Then you know how muscle contraction works. You know what you need. You need the three parts. You need oxygen, calcium, and oxygen, and you can perform muscle contractions for a short time without using oxygen. Then you learn everything about the sliding filament theory. You know everything about myosin and actin and how they work together, and you have performed activities with your own hand and arm to get a little bit feeling how the sarcomere length and performance, that the sarcomere length is responsible of the peak performance. Like if you remember, with your hand you performed a contraction with your fist, and you realized using different angles of your wrist generated less or more force. And keep in mind 2 to 2.2 micrometers of length is the optimal. And then I told you about three different skeletal muscle fiber types. You have type 1, the slow twitch. You have type 2A, the intermediate, and then you have type 2B, the fast rapidly twitch. You learned about the fatigue, the fourth generation of all, and that they're all specialized for different areas of application. Yes, that's what you learned. Thank you so much for your valuable time and your attention. Please leave a rating if you want, and would be a pleasure to me. Give me some insights about how you felt doing this course, what I could be doing better. I'm really working on my English so that I can provide you with better speaking. So please have a pleasant day. Thank you so much. You're doing great, and thank you. Have a really nice day.